This recipe literally took me like, I don't know, 3 weeks to develop, 4 weeks. It's very good because it was made with love and care and a month of my life. Welcome to Snacks. My name is Justine. I go by Justine Snacks on Instagram, thus the name, thus the cooking show. But today we are making citrus salmon with fluffy quinoa. Fluffy is very important, with a bunch of herbs in it. So a shorter name would be citrus salmon. But this recipe sounds like it would be like weirdly sweet, but what we're doing is we're taking a slow roasted buttery salmon, we're putting it in like this citrus soy gingery sauce that takes like 5 minutes to make, and then just putting it with like quinoa with dill, cilantro, and a ton of scallions. And this is what I would say you make for when your boyfriend's parents come over for dinner, or like if you're having friends over but it's a dinner party and you want it to be super easy. I've done episodes that are like the easy weeknight dinner. I've done episodes that are like deep fry your tofu, but this is where we class it up just a bit, but we still keep it in like under 30 minutes. So I already have my oven preheating to 325, and if you've never slow roasted a salmon before, it is the ultimate way to make salmon, and it's also just like the way to get the best result and not have to worry about it at all. So I have about 1 pound of salmon here. This recipe that I'm making today only serves 2. You can scale it up or down as you need to, but there are only 2 of us here, and I don't like to waste food. But I have a pound of salmon that I'm going to be putting on a sheet pan. So fish, unlike other proteins, is better when you season it like right before cooking it because you don't want the salt to break down any of the protein fibers. And salmon's naturally like a really fatty, really tender fish, so we just want to put salt and pepper on right before putting it in the oven at 325 for 16 minutes. And you can also slow roast salmon for like 30 minutes at 275. That'll just give you a way more buttery interior. It'll be like very much on the side of medium rare. It's up to you. I like 325, especially for this recipe, because we're taking the salmon and putting it straight in the marinade instead of vice versa, where you marinate a salmon and then cook it usually at a high temperature. And this whole recipe is all about preserving like that buttery, wonderful texture of the salmon. And you can do this with other fish. I would choose wisely, probably only a white fish. The reason why is because slow roasting salmon is such a technique particular to that salmon that you really don't want to risk it with another fish. But we're just doing salt and pepper. The rest of the flavor will be coming from the marinade in like this reverse marinade situation. Remember how I was like, we're gonna make the salmon. The oven's ready. The oven's not ready. We're gonna let the oven continue to preheat and make the marinade super quickly. So just for the 2-person serving, it's gonna be 1 orange, 1 lime, a few cloves of garlic, knob of ginger, and then I'm gonna be adding soy sauce, fish sauce, sriracha, sesame oil. But just basically everything good in the world we are putting into this, and it comes together in like 30 seconds. So the juice of an entire lime. If you are in a pinch, you can also do a lemon. And I am in the market for a juicer. Not like one of those intense juicers that takes up your entire house and is for people who drink green juices. I'm not a green juice person. That's aspirational. That's for when I'm 40 and rich. But I need like a handheld juicer because RIP, I broke my other one. But I'm just juicing with my hands right now, and honestly, you can get a lot out of it. We're family here. But I have another orange that is going to be strictly decorative, but since my first orange is a little sparse on juice, I'm gonna cut the top off, give it one more squeeze. Just get as much orange juice as I can in there because the orange juice is sweet and that's our only form of sugar in this sauce. Everything else is like super salty or super aromatic, so I kind of like getting a lot of orange juice in there. And you can also, if you're like a big citrus fan, you can also do grapefruit within this sauce, like just do it with the orange juice and then add a bit of grapefruit in there, and that gives like another level of really nice flavor. But I've found for some people it can be like a little too tart, so I just opt to go just for orange juice. Salmon and grapefruit go phenomenally together. It's a pairing that like whenever I see it at a restaurant, I'm so in. It's also winter, so it's the perfect season for grapefruit and oranges and limes. If you're watching this in July, sorry about that. And then we have 3 garlic cloves that I just peeled really quickly. And I'm gonna do about a 1-inch knob of ginger. I actually saw this on TikTok a long time ago and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. But this woman who basically like is a garlic farmer, like she's a garlic specialist, was talking about how everybody is like, oh my god, whenever I see a recipe and it calls for like 2 cloves of garlic, I add like 7, which like, same. And she was like, that's probably because recipe developers, you know, in like those New York Times kitchens or like really anywhere that has access to like farmers market, groceries, or like really fresh ingredients, they're using garlic that has been grown with tender love and care, because she's literally a garlic farmer, and like that garlic has just like such an extra layer of flavor, where we're all out here using my Trader Joe's garlic, which I love Trader Joe's, I'm not shitting on Trader Joe's, but I cannot stop thinking about it, especially when I'm developing recipes with garlic. So that long ass tangent to say, garlic to your heart's content, make this recipe your own. And that's the theme of this episode. But I'm doing 3 cloves of garlic, 1 knob of ginger, which honestly, if we're being real with ourselves, ginger probably operates under the same set of rules. If you are a ginger expert at home, screaming into the camera trying to tell me the facts about ginger, just comment them below, I will read it. Last thing, don't mandolin your fingers. This is the cost of grating easily, and it's really, you're just losing the bits of skin, so just chill. Don't hurt yourself. Okay, and we have, at least for this recipe, the dream team. Not actually a shit ton, I was gonna say a ton, but it's a reasonable amount of sauces, which should be my MO. I'm a reasonable amount of sauce person. So for this recipe, we're gonna do a tablespoon of soy sauce. The recipe calls for a tablespoon of fish sauce. I tend to go a little bit shallower, and then season to taste. And we're doing a dash of sriracha, that's to taste. And then a tiny, tiny dash, I'd say like 1/4 of a teaspoon to 1/2 teaspoon of sesame oil. And that's all the kids, and that's them doing their best job. And then we whisk that all together, and it just turns into my favorite color, but also the reason that this recipe took me 4 weeks to figure out, because I was sitting on this marinade and I was like, it's amazing on salmon, but it also could be like diluted and turned into like a broth, or it could be like a salad dressing if I added a bit more fat to it. I really did not know where to take this marinade, and then I was like, duh, reverse marinating, which you will see how that works after we get the salmon cooked, which I'm gonna put that in the oven right now because the oven's finally ready. Next up, quinoa. Very, very easy. I bought this with like the biggest aesthetic goals and dreams, but it's so inconvenient. You guys didn't see the cut before this where I tried to pour it directly into the measuring cup. Didn't work out. I'm measuring out 1 whole cup of quinoa. I know I'm scaling this recipe to 2. I just want to have a little bit extra. So if you were actually making it for 2, I'd say 1/2 cup of quinoa is pretty good. And in the ingredient measurements below, I'll have that. And it's super important to rinse your quinoa before cooking. Quinoa is a grain, just like rice. It gets a little gross if you don't rinse it. So I'll rinse that really quick and then put it on the pan. Quinoa in, water in. Secret to fluffy quinoa, just a bit of fat and season. So let it get to a boil, give it a little bit of a stir, and we'll drop it down to a simmer. Cover for 10 minutes. Okay, so salmon's in the oven, quinoa's on the stove, and since I've now reached that level of my YouTube career where I'm a multitasking queen, we're just gonna chop up the herbs for when the quinoa's ready, so then once the salmon's done, we just assemble everything. For this recipe, I have scallions for the salmon portion, and then for the quinoa portion, I like doing just a bit of dill along with cilantro. You can really mix and match however you like. You can throw parsley in this. You can take out cilantro if you don't like cilantro. So the quinoa is gonna be relatively rustic. I guess rustic is my word for fast and loose, but I'm just hand tearing up the dill. I'm using, honestly, some cilantro that's seen better days, but we're tearing off just the tops of the leaves. Really, with this quinoa, I want the herbs to be mostly intact. And cilantro, I don't know how to say this nicely. Cilantro is not like a super, like a fighter. You know, like parsley can really hold its own if you chop it up, if you like do a lot of things with it, but cilantro's, she's a tender little baby, so I like to keep it fully intact when I'm mixing it in with like a warm grain bowl, just so the cilantro has like a little more backbone to her. I'm not bullying her, I'm just being honest. And this is salmon at 325 for 16 minutes. You can see the exterior looks pretty cooked, and on the inside it'll be super nice and buttery. I'm gonna leave it on the pan because our quinoa has 1 more minute. And then I'm just gonna finish chopping up the scallions and we'll start to put everything together. And quinoa's done. So I'm gonna give it a quick fluff. Took it off the heat, and I'm just gonna put the lid on and let it sit for 5 minutes. And lastly, before we put everything together, I'm switching to a serrated to cut really, really thin pieces of this orange, which we're gonna put directly in the marinade. Not mandatory, but for aesthetics. Now, everything comes together. So our salmon should be super easy to flake apart. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna flake it apart and put it directly in the sauce. I call this reverse marinating. What you're doing is giving the salmon like a nice little home in the sauce, and it's meant to be served like family style. So when you scoop out a piece and put it with your quinoa, the sauce comes with it, and it's like super amazing and delicious. So what I like to do is kind of use a fork and a knife to help me flake along the lines. And sometimes the salmon needs a little encouragement to know that like it's okay to break apart. But you know how fish naturally flakes? Salmon will naturally flake off into pieces. And then how I like to arrange it is orange slices in, do about 4, and then salmon straight in, like you're making it like a little bed. And again, this recipe took me forever to figure out because I was like, how do I make this look pretty? And it's really just making it look like the salmon has landed. Hey Walter. Save some orange slices. You don't have to do this if you're at home, but if this is like you're serving to a crowd, it's cute. This isn't part of the recipe. I just have a compulsive need to add black sesame seeds to everything. Quinoa's been sitting off the heat covered for about the amount of time it took to finish our beautiful salmon plating, so I'm just going to give it a quick fluff. Also taste and adjust the seasoning here too, because you want the quinoa to be able to really stand on its own up against the herbs that we're putting on it. Another plating option, like I really have this recipe designed to be like, you put it down at a dinner table and people can serve themselves, but another plating option is to just plate a pile of quinoa and then put a good serving amount of the marinade on top, and then the salmon directly on top, and that's like if it's just like dinner for yourself or for 2. Now is when you can beat up your cilantro just a little bit, activate those aromatics. If you're feeling crazy, the orange that you used for aesthetics. But yeah, that's it. This was a citrus salmon with a fluffy quinoa with whatever herbs you want. One of my favorite things to make. Arguably one of the most delicious. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments. Throw this video a like, throw it a subscribe if you want to stick around for more. We put out videos on Tuesdays, and I will see you in the next one.